Hey guys, today I'm going to be continuing on with my retro deck profile segment, and today we're looking at 2004, which has been dubbed the Chaos format, and you'll see why in a minute. One Yatagarasu. This card is arguably the reason for the ban list. It had a little combo, I said little, where you had Chaos Emperor Dragon, and you would blow up the field, blow up everything, and you would normally have a floater on the board like Sangan, Witch of the Black Forest, and then off that you would search Yatta, and then attack with Yatta. Its effect activates, meaning your opponent can't draw. So your opponent never gets any cards, so you just keep beating them down with Yatta. It's quite nice. Nice? What am I talking about? These three. The Chaos monsters from Invasion of Chaos. Dark Magician of Chaos, Black Luster Soldier, and Chaos Emperor Dragon. It's debatable as to which is the most powerful. A lot of people will say Chaos Emperor Dragon, but they've errated Dark Magician of Chaos and Emperor Dragon, which is quite nasty because it kind of destroys their legacy. They're supposed to be overpowered. They're supposed to be remembered for what they did this format. They won games. They were abused. Like Dark Magician of Chaos, you just bring it back with Reborn, with Premature Burial, Call the Haunted, and reuse things like Graceful, etc. Breaker. One of the best, a staple really, for this format and for the following few formats. It's only recent that this card has fallen out of favour because most decks tend to be archetypes now, which is quite sad, to be honest. Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer. This card is incredibly important during this format because it's a Chaos format and your opponent is loading their deck with Lights and Darks, so removing them, removing their fodder for the Emperor Dragon for BLS is insane, and obviously they can't drop them on you. That's why we play two of them. Next, 3 DD Warrior Lady, arguably the MVP of the format. This is a card which offers you simple spot removal. Whenever you need it, it's searchable very, very easily in the deck, and it gets rid of massive threats like Black Luster Soldier, Chaos Emperor Dragon, etc. So we play 3, because it's awesome. Next, 2 Magician of Faith. Magician of Faith is in the deck because you run one of the most busted lineups of spell cards in the history of the game, and reusing them is amazing. Searchers, Witch of the Black Forest and Sangan. Which should really return? There are debates out there where people say, oh, you can search Dark Arm Dragon, etc. Yeah, but you can do that with Wyvern. Witch of the Black Forest doesn't really do anything that Sangan doesn't really. That, if that makes sense, probably not. But I think they could both return, and the game would still be quite healthy. Power creep is real. Magical Scientists. Some people play Jinzo in this spot. I like Scientists, it's more versatile. You can bring out things like Thousand Eyes Restrict, Ryo Senshi, Dark Bolt of the Terrible, Fiend Skull Dragon. You'd be familiar with these if you play Goat Control. And this card can lead to a lot of advantage. You can clear the board. Serpent and Tribe. I've put these next to each other because if you play Goat Control, you know that they have very, very good interactions between one another. Serpent is excellent discard fodder in this deck. Spell cards. Painful Choice. One of the most broken spells in the game. It loads up your grave really quickly. It deck thins. It gets you your powerful things in the grave. You can dump Dark Magician of Chaos, only to reborn it back, or Premature Burial, etc. You can dump the Serpent, so you can get it to your hand faster. One Scapegoat. This is more defense, and it defends you against Jinzo, and when your opponent's going for game, this can save you. I'm going to put these together because it's the Trinity. Who knows whether these cards can return. Of the 3, I'd say Pot of Greed is probably the most likely, but we'll see. These offer draw power and disruption of your opponent's hand. Following on from that, we have the Forceful Sentry and Confiscation, more disruption of your opponent's hand. Forceful Sentry, arguably the most powerful because Confiscation sends the cards to the graveyard, although the majority of the time you'll be using their effects to discard spell cards so that your opponent can't come back. and information is always incredibly powerful in Yu-Gi-Oh! Has been since the start. Snatch, Steal, and Change of Heart. Again, I'm putting these cards next to each other because they're essentially the same card. They do the same job. They steal monsters. Again, Reborn and Premature Burial. We had Reborn until 2011, 2012, I think it was. And we all know how powerful this card is. The main thing which separates it from things now is that you could take things from your opponent, so you could revive Blackluster Soldier, etc. It creates massive swings in advantage. And Premature Burial is essentially the same card. Next, Board Wipes. 1 Raigeki and 1 Dark Hole. These two are incredibly important, and you might think, well, we've got them both at the moment, so they're not really that powerful. Well, this was 2004. If you lost 3-4 monsters to these cards, that was a big deal. Although I can't imagine why you'd have that many on the field at the same time. Harpy's Feather Duster and Heavy Storm. These are cards which have been speculated about returning to our current format, and of the two, it's hard to decide which one would be the lesser of two evils because of the pendulum mechanic, which means that a lot of people favour Harpy's Feather Duster coming back as opposed to Heavy Storm. But Heavy Storm is arguably fairer. Next card, you might not have come across this, Mirage of Nightmare. You draw cards in your opponent's standby phase, you discard the same number in your standby phase. Basically, you can combo this with Serpent so that you can discard the Serpent in your standby phase and then add it to your hand again. Or you can combo it with Mystical Space Typhoon. Some people played 2, some people played 3. And it was mainly to abuse that card, Mirage of Nightmare, because you could put all of your resources on the board, then draw 3-4 cards in your opponent's standby phase, and during your draw phase, MST the Mirage of Nightmare. It's incredibly powerful. And it also answered the trap cards. 1 Mirror Force, board wipe, 1 Torrential Tribute, board wipe. Call the Haunted, abuse Dark Magician of Chaos with this card. Ring of Destruction ends the game really quickly so that you can burn with Emperor Dragon for game, etc. And probably the most important trap, Imperial Order. This card is crucial because, as you've seen, you have an absolutely busted spell lineup. And you might be thinking, well, I run so many spells, so why would I run Imperial Order? And it's because you can turn it off when you want. You have that flexibility. Your opponent doesn't. They just have to live with it, basically. And obviously, as you're playing Scientist, you probably want to play some extra deck things. These are just a few examples of things you could play, because they all offer problem-solving abilities. Obviously, if you've got a GOAT control format fusion deck, then, you know, have a look at that. But that's the deck profile, guys. So I would encourage you to have a look at this deck. If you want to play it, it's not the most fun of formats because, as you can imagine, there's a lot of sackiness. Drawing these two cards especially and getting Yatta locked really isn't fun at all. This deck is essentially the reason why we have the ban list. But it gives you an insight into how the game was back then, and it's a history of the game essentially. So have a go, guys. Until the next time, bye.